Aloha, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Michel Casselman. He is a Canadian poet whose writing is deeply personal, influenced by significant life events, his love for eclectic music, spirituality, and existential inquiry. He offers readers an introspective exploration of place, identity, and human connection. Michel is the author of Purgatory Road, an invitation to redemption, fireside narratives of the soul. I love the soul idea too. So the full bio will be at the end. There's a lot more about Michel. So it'll be the end of this video and also in the podcast notes. So the first question that I love asking everyone, Michel, is how would you introduce yourself? Who is Michel in this very moment?
Well, one of the things that has happened to me recently that's I find quite profound is I became a grandfather for the first time in
Oh,
my life, probably
yeah,
the only time. And
congratulations.
I have a young daughter that's about 16 or 18 months, about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it puts me into contact with the whole cycle of life, the growing and the questioning, and how you become sort of a sponge and just
Mm,
absorb, ask questions, just learning what the world is about. So I'm
yeah.
seeing that in her, and
Yeah.
it's awakening. It's inspiring as a
Mm,
poet, but it's also as a human being putting me into contact with the essence of what it is to be a human being. It's very special.
wow.
And the other thing I would say is that I'm at a stage in my life right now, I'm more or less I'm a senior citizen, so that means I've got all that experience in my behind me, and I find myself being very prolific. I've gone through several dry periods in my life where I wasn't writing at all. I wasn't inspired to write. Maybe there was the employment, the job that took all my energy,
Mm,
but I find it quite easy to be inspired now and to
mm,
sit down and just and write, my thoughts. That's
yes.
that's very encouraging, you know.
Right. It is.
And
Yes, Michelle,
and
please.
poetry, of course, I learned poetry very at an early age because I read a lot of poetry.
Yeah.
I did all the romantic poets and Tennyson's and Byron and Robert Frost and so many of the great poets. I mean, it's a language that speaks to me, and I
Mm,
was glad to be able to learn that skill at an early age.
mm,
The collection of poetry that's in the manuscript was probably done between the ages of 20 and 35.
oh, wow.
So I'm writing a very different type of poetry today,
Wow.
but using the same skills. I'm still a wordsmith.
Mm,
Um, One of the things that's helped me be more thoughtful as a poet is I've also studied philosophy for many years. I graduated in philosophy,
mm,
and that I have to say that philosophy does really wake up that questioning human being. It's very inquisitive, and it's important, I think, in a person. It's something that was taught in the school when I was growing up, but
right.
today I suppose it's not really something that's part of the curriculum, unfortunately.
True. Yeah. Sadly, I agree. What is the main difference between the way you used to write poetry in the past and now? What's the main difference you would say?
I think people associate poetry, the tendency to associate with strictly emotions, feelings, whether positive or negative.
Yeah.
And the language and the imagery is often evocative of your emotions. I still use that a lot, but because I studied philosophy, I find myself questioning a lot of things in the
Mm,
society that I live in. And
yeah.
I have more of a philosophical um, perspective on things. So
Mm,
I try to combine both together, you know what I mean?
right.
But because a lot of things to me seem in society very contradictory, and I feed on those contradictions because I look at the contradictory ways that we look at things and how we express things and explain things. I say, well, there's truth in both.
Yeah.
Neither explanation is perfectly
Mm,
uh, true to reality. So
yeah.
you can play with that. You know what I mean? You play one against the other, and
Yeah.
like a debate. Socrates type of
Mm,
Socrates was very skilled at that. He would
yeah.
attract other philosophers to ask him questions, and he would poke holes in the way they were asking maybe you're asking the wrong question, or he
Yeah.
wouldn't answer the question that they were expecting him to answer the question. He was very sly that way. So it's a bit of I have a bit of that Socratic kind of tradition in me, which is it's a lot of
Mm.
fun.
Yes, there's something about asking questions, right? That's almost like a way of giving birth. It's almost like a midwife. I feel like a lot
Yes.
of times, if you want a good answer, you ask a good question, right? So, speaking of that, you mentioned about questioning society these days. What do you question the most? What is one or two things that you question the most?
Well, I guess the debate is always about what is reality, right? I mean, we tend to think we have a direct connection to reality, but we don't, because
Mm,
depending on our where we are in our life, the life cycle makes a difference in how you see things, and the
right,
language, the country you're in, the language you're using to express it in, makes
right.
all the difference. So that reality, without wanting to say that reality doesn't exist, it does exist, but you
Mm,
have to look at the context. I think one one thing I find very interesting in the poetry is to try to describe the context that you're in, because if you don't explain the context, it's very easy to be misinterpreted.
that,
You're saying things are lost in translation. Well, there's a lot of that going on in our society. We're constantly, you know,
yeah.
misinterpreting each other,
Mm,
and it's
mm,
not easy to communicate.
mm,
Communication is pretty essential. I think young people in our society need to read more and learn to use language more effectively.
mm.
Because communications is absolutely essential, and I think we're seeing that in the political world that we live in today, is that
Oh, yeah.
communications is we're in trouble. We're not getting the idea.
I agree.
So
I
I think
agree.
I have a love of language, which would explain why I'm attracted to both philosophy
Mm.
and poetry. And I love
Yeah.
music too, because music is its own language, but
Yeah.
it doesn't need a subtext. That's a thing I actually wrote about in one of my poems, in my new work, is that when I listen to contemporary music today, particularly for young people, I find there's a lot of blah blah blah, but not much actually being said. And so just listen to the music. Forget about the subtext. But some people are very good at writing songs. It's not an easy thing to write
Mm,
a really good song. It's a good tune, but you also need to put the right spin in terms of the words. Do you have something to say or you don't?
mm.
And if you keep repeating the same thing,
Yeah.
then people are not going to get turned on to what it is you're trying to say. So you have
Yes.
to be a good wordsmith. One of well, not my contemporaries, but one of my national heroes, I suppose, is Leonard Cohen, who started out as a poet. You've heard of Leonard Cohen, have you?
I think I heard of him, but I'm
Yeah,
not
he's
sure if I.
extremely internationally famous. He's
Yeah,
deceased
I
now.
heard of the
But he
name.
started out as a poet, and then he decided to become a musician. And
Mhm.
what he did is he started writing poetry in his songwriting.
Yeah.
And that's where his success really took off and became
Beautiful.
an international sort of
Right.
personality at that point. So
Right.
so it proves that it can be done, but
Mhm.
you have to be diligent, and you have to develop your craft,
Yeah. Isn't
which he
it
did.
Bob Dylan? He was an
Yeah,
amazing.
Bob Dylan was a big fan of Leonard Cohen. Yeah,
I can
and Leonard
imagine.
Cohen was inspired by Bob Dylan as well, because he was a wordsmith, Bob
Yeah.
Dylan, and
Yeah.
he started out as a musician, and he still
Right.
is.
Yeah.
So
Amazing. Yes. Um, One of the things that I usually I have learned, of course, is I don't know if that's a skill or something that comes naturally with some of us, that we quickly learn the limitations of language when relating to other people. And I don't know if women are better at this, and then we become more nonverbal communicators in the sense of a smile, and then we are kind in different ways, softer, and that kind of opens the door a lot of times. We don't have to use language really. And then people usually they kind of open up to that because it has an energetic kind of message. It carries something when you are genuine, of course, your intentions. So I usually work more on that part of me, that skill, than language, because I have failed so many times because I love truth. And a lot of times not easy to, to say,
Mhm.
tell somebody, even my husband, look, there's that, because he's not ready to listen, not ready to hear. And then I ended up going back to what I know best to do, to just be kind and kind of lead him in a different way. Is that something that resonates with you, Michelle, somehow?
Yes, I'd agree with you that it's a gender, to some extent, there's a gender issue there.
Yeah, in a way.
We say women are much better at communications.
Mm,
And maybe that's with childbirth and having to raise children. I think you have to be very expressive with your children,
right.
and the body plays a big role in how you express that.
Yes.
And there's a whole philosophy to that too. I mean, when I
Hmm.
studied philosophy, there was one particular philosopher who talked about embodiment. That the
Mm,
problem with philosophy and communication is that
yeah.
we deny the role of the body. It plays an extremely important role in
Yes.
everything we do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Even emotions. You
Mm,
can't discuss emotions without associating them with the body. You
right.
feel them in different parts of your body, and your
Right.
body has a certain sixth sense.
Hmm.
As you were pointing out, can skip the words and just sense the emotion through the presence of the person's body. So
Right.
yeah, totally agree with you. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
embodiment is something I use a fair bit in my poetry as well. You know what I mean?
You do. Oh,
You have to be aware that your body is how you live in the world.
yeah.
You're not just a disembodied spirit floating around. You know,
Yes. Only thoughts. Yeah.
you're a body, and it comes with its positive and then its negative aspects. You know, and then coming
Yes.
back to the idea of I use a lot about irony because I think there's so much irony in the world. You know, might as well use it in your writing because we are ironic creatures.
That is true. Another thing is playfulness. That's something else that I very much I connect with, in the sense of connect within myself so I can connect better with others, is this sense of joy, of appreciation, of gratitude, of playfulness. That really, really helps
Yeah.
especially with difficult people, difficult situations. It's so helpful, so helpful.
Yeah, because I can be a very critical person because it's something I practice. I like to criticize things, but at the
Yeah,
same time, you have to be able to see the good side of things, the positive. You know what I mean?
it's helpful.
Especially around children, if you're too critical,
Yeah,
well, they're going to get the aspect that there's nothing good about anything. Well, of course,
right.
the world is beautiful, and there's lots of beautiful experiences,
Yeah,
to have as you go through life, and not just focus on the negative things that happen to you, or to learn how to use them in a
mhm,
positive way.
yeah,
Writing about them is a good way I find, of overcoming the anxiety that comes with events, negative events and
yeah.
disappointments, you know what I mean? If you write about them, it's like you overcome the
Mm,
negative aspect.
that's right. That is true.
So again, that comes back to communications. So I mean.
Yes, yes. That's something, Michelle, that I often kind of, that's the main question under everything that I do as a professional, writing my own books and also doing all that I do with this platform and the nonprofit here in Hawaii. It's always when I meet somebody, whatever they're offering, could be a book, a service, whatever it is, how can what you offer ease or lessen the suffering in the world, or lessen the suffering in somebody, kind of diminish the pain? How helpful is it when it comes to suffering? So that's a question that I have for you too. Talk to me about your book, Purgatory Road, and the intention. And do you have this aspect of kind of somehow lessen the suffering in the world for those who read your book?
Well, I think every poem in itself is an attempt to come to terms with whatever the experience is. It might not be my experience; it could be the experience of somebody that I
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
that I've met. But the observations that I've had from people who read my poetry is that there's always a kind of a sign of hope at the end of the poem.
mm,
You're describing an incident, a
yeah,
disappointment, a failure, or something that would be inherently viewed as negative.
yeah.
But if you can come out of it with a sign of hope, I think that's what people need. People need hope. You know what I mean? If you look at the world right now, what's going
Mm,
on,
yeah,
it's not good. We've got
Yeah.
lots of reasons to be disappointed and to be worried about the future, especially young people today. So
Right.
what's going to animate them? What's going to give them hope for the future? Because it
Right.
looks pretty grim. And
True.
especially with all this talk about artificial intelligence. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
just adds another dimension of complexity and uncertainty. So I think I try to come to terms with the with all of those experiences, come out with something a little bit more positive or more hopeful, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Showing that, I'm still here.
Yes.
I've gone through I've mourned my losses, but I'm still here and
Yes.
I still want to be around as long as possible.
Right.
I mean, I don't have that long to live. I mean, objectively, if you look at, respect the average age expectancy, but I think I have still a lot to give.
Oh, yes.
So
Absolutely.
that the writing gives me hope that there's something very positive waiting for me and waiting for my readers.
Right. Yes, Michelle. Beautiful.
I wanted
And
to
some,
comment on the title. I just want to say that the
yeah.
thing about a collection of poetry is that you wrote these poems at different times in your life. I mean, they represent probably poetry I wrote between the ages of 20 and 35. So there's
Amazing.
a 15 years of life there.
Right.
And to assign a theme to something can be a little bit difficult because there are different episodes in your life.
Right.
One theme may not actually represent the entire collection of experiences.
Right.
But I chose that title because it was a kind of a purgatory. Life is purgatory. It's not hell. I certainly wouldn't have chosen hell as my title because that's much too extreme, too negative. It is
Yeah.
a kind of purgatory. But
Mm.
how did you fare in that purgatory? Well, I'm still here, so I must have fared okay. And the redemption is in what you can do about your experiences, how you can share them, how you can express them, the perspective you take, because everything is a matter of perspective.
Mm.
Uh, that makes
Yeah.
the difference between people, how they view things. It's like the glass half water, half full, half empty.
Mm.
It's just a
Yeah.
matter of perspective.
Right. Yes, absolutely. That's funny that you mentioned about purgatory is not the same as hell, right? But life is not. It's challenging. It is. Yeah, it is a miracle in so many ways. It is a miracle to be here and to carry a positive outlook. I have this well, I'm very spiritual. I guess that helps. So I have my foundation of it's Advaita Vedanta is a Hindu. It's basically almost like a map, kind of. It's very logical in many ways, but it kind of guides us to see what's real and what's not real. So I've been studying that for so long, and more than a study, contemplating, reflecting, and meditating. So it has become very real to me. Like that, we are not just this. This is just an
Mhm.
experience. So it becomes more fun that way too, Michelle, to look from those lens. It's like a perception type of thing. That it's almost like a dream. So we're just dreaming right now. We have no idea how we got here. And there's too many. There's a lot of speculations how all this happened, but we don't really know. But it feels very much, Vedanta says, like a dream. So you get you just find yourself in a dream. So what do? You have to go with that flow, and then and hopefully that dream has some rules that you can follow, which this life does. So it becomes so much more interesting when we know that it's temporary, but there's something that's observing, that's kind of paying attention to all of this, one scene at a time, one frame at a time. And that fascinates me when I just realized that, wait a minute, I'm just the something that's kind of is aware of all of this, but it's not really me. It's just kind of doing what it does, and I'm here kind of witnessing all this. So that changed completely the perspective for me. Has changed, and then now it becomes a lot more playful too. So I see everything as coming and going, not nothing. It's permanent anyway. The experience, so it feels a lot more like just rest, resting here, do what you're called to do. You can call it destiny, whatever it is, and then let go of the rest. And it feels so much better that way. Feels like freedom, redemption in that sense. So, do you want to make a comment about this? Because I have a question for you.
Well, I mean, coming back to philosophy, consciousness is a very,
Mm,
very strong topic within philosophy because
yeah.
many philosophers will deny even its existence, that this is just brain activity. It's all physical, it's all materialistic,
Yeah.
and some of us continue to fight against this view that everything is mechanical and
Mm,
physical, and that the spiritual dimension is actually not physical. It's,
right. Right.
trying to you could, well, physics is getting pretty weird today because quantum theory is
Yeah.
changing the way we look at physical reality,
Right.
and I think it tends to support exotic views of existence,
Mm,
Asian philosophies and
yes.
philosophies in general, looking for the soul and the spirit inside the
Mm,
human being. You know what I mean?
mm,
It's like, well,
yeah.
they'll describe it as looking for the
Mm,
ghost in the machine, but
yes.
it's more than a ghost and it's not a machine. Like
Yes,
that's the
that's it.
contradiction.
Yes.
Using terms like ghost and machine are both the wrong terms to use, but they're
Mm,
very graphic. You
yes.
think of a ghost living inside a machine, but
Right.
the human being is so much more than that. So it's like asking the wrong question. Giving those terms, machine and ghost, is the wrong language to use. So we
Right.
have to invent the right language to try to
Yeah.
describe the human experience.
Right.
So those are the kinds of questions that I toy with and that I use in my writing. It's fun. Might
It
not
is.
be fun for other people, but I mean, for me, I enjoy it.
Yeah. That's it. That's how it's
You would
your.
like my future manuscript, which is
Yeah.
it's
Have
already
you
been written.
Exile in
Uh,
Paradise? I like the name.
yeah, and it touches on the aspect that we can feel sometimes alienated, that we've migrated to something that might be better or worse, like the
Mm,
immigrant.
mm,
The immigrant leaves his homeland for a variety of reasons. Could be climate change. It can be not being able to have the means to raise his family. It can be
right.
war. But he's always assuming that he's going to a better place. But
Right.
that may not be the case. You know what I mean?
Right.
You could talk to thousands of immigrants who made the shift, changed country, but they didn't necessarily come to paradise. It wasn't a paradise. Again,
Right.
it's the contrast. You know what I mean? The paradox.
Right.
The
Right.
subtitle of it is meditations, because I think a lot of my
Mm,
poetry is a meditation. You can call it a poem if you like. It's just
yeah.
a word. It's a name, but to me,
Yeah.
it's a meditation. So it's
Nice.
called Meditations on the crossroads between faith and uncertainty. I live with uncertainty and I live with faith at the same time. They both
Mm,
go together. It's tough
right.
to not have one and not have the other. They come together.
That
And
makes
it's like when you're walking down a road, if you're not familiar with the road, you don't know what's going to be at the other end.
yeah.
You don't know if you're going to make it to the end. You don't know what the conditions are going to be.
Yeah.
And that's pretty well the sum of your life.
Yes.
So I think
Right.
it's a good metaphor. I think in metaphors and parables and
I love
uh,
that.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a game I play with myself, with my
Good.
mind.
Good,
But
Michelle, because
yeah,
good. I love that playfulness, especially with the. I mean, that's how it's incredibly. It feels to me like unlimited, the inner resource, the mind and the creative
it is
aspect of it, the imagination.
infinite.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
So you mentioned hope earlier, and then now I heard the word faith. What is the difference between those two concepts, hope and faith, from your perspective?
Um, well, okay. Faith, well, I think they're related. It's like at the end of
Yeah.
the tunnel, if you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you say, well, I have hope that I'll get out of the tunnel. That there is an end, to being
Yeah.
confined.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it if you didn't have the light at the end of the tunnel. It would be difficult to maintain your faith. So if you have hope, you're going
Ah.
to be able to maintain your faith.
Mm,
For me, faith is not a religious concept. To me,
right.
it doesn't have anything necessarily to do with faith, but I mean, people have faith in a spiritual realm or a religious realm. I think my idea of faith is tied more to being a spiritual being as opposed to supporting any kind of specific religion. You know what I mean? Um, But faith is interesting in that we need to have faith in order to take risks. And I've actually written something. It's actually a poem that I'm going to use probably as the introduction to my next collection. It's called Faith and Uncertainty, and to try to play with those two concepts. How do they relate? And finally, they come together. You can't really have one without the other. I don't think even a religious person hasn't at some point started doubting his faith. I mean, if you look at the story of Jesus, even Jesus had doubts at one point because he couldn't understand why people were not receiving his message and not respecting his message. And in the final analysis, he was betrayed, you know what I mean? And betrayal is something that will drive you into doubting.
Yes.
Doubting the very existence of what you were doing, you know what I mean? So was I wrong?
Yeah.
The fact that you would betray me, does that mean I was on the wrong road?
Right.
Not necessarily, you know.
Right.
But I mean, it's fundamental to being a human being, you know. I mean, the people use the Bible as a touchstone for wisdom, but at the very heart of it, there's everything in there. There's violence, there's betrayal, there's faith, there's doubt. It's all there.
Right.
And I think it's a beautiful parable, really, for how to look at the world. You know what I mean? It's very old. I mean, the world hasn't changed that much in 2,000 years. You know, well, it's probably older than that, but anyway, it's
so
so
true.
to me, it's also questioning what do you believe in and why do you believe in it and why is it important for you to believe in it? You know what I mean? If it gives you energy, gives you hope, gives you a sense of relevance, of meaning, then that's good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that is helpful. I agree. I usually see in terms of helpful, not helpful. Instead of good and bad, unhealthy, healthy. Yeah, helpful. So I would love for you to read a poem for us, like one of your favorite poems, perhaps. That would be incredibly helpful,
Yeah.
using that word.
Well, I'd have to
You
dig
could.
out because the problem is I haven't received my book yet, my copies.
Right. Oh, you did?
So
I want to
sometimes
show.
but I have printed them out in a manuscript,
Yeah.
so I could go just in the next room and pick something up if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yes, Michelle. Yeah,
I'll
I'll
try to
be
pick
here.
something that's not too long. So if you
Yes,
just
please.
bear with
If,
me for a minute,
yeah, if you don't mind,
I'm going to
if
go
you,
off screen there.
yes, sure. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thanks.
yes, we're here.
Hard to choose.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
It's one I wrote because I like music. I wrote
Mm,
a piece about a guitarist, a
yeah.
fictional poem about a guitarist, and it goes like this. It's called The Blue Guitarist. The blue guitarist sits by an open window of a rooming house, ripening in his languor. Tremors sparked from the fingers float his body on the waves. Could he be playing only for himself? While he explores the roots of his expatriate soul, with one hand muscled at the neck, the other hand is picking strings before it finds the perfect chord to rhyme the discord of this house. Daily he may be observed teasing and caressing the hourglass figure of his instrument, fretting over the clockwork of his movements to dispatch a rhythm riding a melodic line. Notice how his body resonates to every sound, split between tones that hovers over him. Nostalgic images are set to music at the stroke of 12, taut steel threads, a quilt of harmony, so that the moon may shimmer over the still water. And when he improvises on a theme, a door is opened to every room of the house. Far be it for him to play for praise, which could bind him like a cowbell, around his neck. A time always comes for wedding the road to another curious town where the folk have not yet heard his magic strings. The melancholy balladeer, lost in a narrative that knows no beginning, with a brood of children drifting in his wake, could be a Spanish yogi like Segovia or a muddy waters in the rough. From his mixed bag of anecdotes, the rhythms of the past have borrowed new words as he croons with the pathos of a heart unchained. A legend in his time through most every land, he calls on kings and paupers alike. There are many who believe that the power of his gift can call upon the sun to rise from its cloudy bed, or can heal old rheumatism from the bones. Others grin dumbfounded, pulling on their yokes. Whatever crooked fortune may befall the blue guitarist and his gypsy ways, his name carries the scent of music on the wind, summoning echoes of the land and village life. He urges ordinary people everywhere to lend him their stories and to take up the songs that season their lives.
Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful poem too. Yes, my body was kind of moving to it. Speaking of the embodiment, it feels like
Right.
a meditation. Yes, it feels like a song in itself.
Well, there is a rhythm to poetry
Mm.
which is unique, I think, to compared to prose. And sometimes when you're writing, you say, well, and you read it back to yourself, say, the words are great, but you're having to do a little bit of a skip with a verse, and you say, could I take that word, take it out because it has 3 syllables or 4 awkward syllables, replace it with something with 2 syllables, and maintain the rhythm of the verse. And that's
Yes,
kind of tedious, but it's part of writing, you know. I think it's an
yes.
aspect that has always existed in poetry, except at one point we had rhymes. And when I think about that today, I think
Yeah.
that would be so constricting to have to choose words that rhyme with the previous line. And I'm glad we got rid of that. But
Right.
what we kept was the rhythm, you know, it's still there. And I think it's
Yes.
important because it has this musical quality to it, you know.
Mm. It can very much can be felt. It's just incredible how if we some people they kind of don't relate to poems, I guess, because they cannot, maybe because they don't have that rhythm within themselves, the sense of harmony.
Right.
And perhaps that's what the reason. I don't know, but I love poetry. Every time I hear them, my
Yeah.
body starts to move like, yeah, as I'm listening to music, just
I
like
think you have to
music.
stop when you have to give yourself a quiet moment to listen to poetry. And
Yeah,
to do that, you have to get all these other, a bit like meditation. I took
right.
a bit of Buddhist meditation. I always found the concept strange that the idea is not to think about anything, it's to not think.
Yeah.
And of course, I consider myself to be a big thinker, maybe too much thinking.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to not think? Well, when you don't think,
Mm,
things will come to mind more easily. But
right.
the idea is not to focus on any particular idea. As soon as another idea comes to mind, get rid of it so that your mind is resting from ideas and
Yes.
thoughts. And
Yes.
that's what a part of meditation is about, ridding yourself of all that noise
Yeah.
that we live with all day long, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
That's it.
poetry provides a good substitute, you know, because it's musical, because the words are carefully chosen
Yeah.
to not to rhyme in the sense, the old sense of rhyme. They rhyme in the sense of ideas and the pictures that you know, that they convey. That's where the real rhyme is, and not the old fashioned rhyme where the ending had to rhyme with and they would cheat with rhymes too. You know, the rhymes
Yeah.
wouldn't be quite perfect. You
Huh.
know,
Yeah, I remember that. I remember reading some of
yeah.
those. I mean, it sounds like so much fun. I'm really in admiration, in respect. I have a lot of devotion for this type of work. Do you call it soul? I know in the title you do use the word soul. Is that where it comes from? It's almost comes from the silence, that pure consciousness, space.
Yeah.
How do you relate to the soul when it comes to poetry? I would love to hear that too.
Yeah, it's sometimes a word I would use advisedly because it has a religious connotation to
Right.
it, you know.
Yeah.
And we tend to mix, we don't always distinguish what's soul and spirit. What's the difference, you know?
Mm, right.
Um, I tend to think of spirit as something that's expressive. It's coming out. It's going out into the world. It's something
Mm,
you give, you
mm,
express. Whereas
spirit.
soul is something that doesn't always need to be expressed. It simply exists in you. It's there. It's part of your character. It's part of every experience you've lived. It's all there. It's your
Mm,
embodiment also. I mean, soul sounds like something not body, the opposite, but no, your
Right.
soul is tied to your body because it contains all the experiences, all the revelations, all the things you've learned. And the spirit is how you would express it. You could use poetry, you can use music, you can use sculpture, you can use
Mm,
um, any kind of artwork to express it, or even in conversation, in communications. But
right.
soul is something I think that's attached to the body. It's in essence not verbal. The spirit part would be verbal,
Yes.
um, but it's something I struggle with a little bit. I mean, what is it really? We use these words, without defining what they are, like
Right.
love. You know what I mean? What
Right.
what word in the English language is used more than the word love? But if
Right.
you asked somebody to define it, it wouldn't be easy to define, right? I think
Right.
it's soul and spirit are those kinds of words. You know what I mean? They're very
Right.
hard to define because they're not material, and you have to have thought about them to
Mm,
have an idea of how you would explain what they are.
right.
Mhm.
Right. I
But
I never
all of
heard
that
it this
tied.
way.
Go ahead.
Mm. Oh yes. No. 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 Please conclude. Yes. Yeah.
I was just going to say it's tied to the whole question of embodiment, what it means to be embodied.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
mm,
Definitely. A soul is not something. That's what I've asked myself that question sometimes. I think about people who believe in life after death.
yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, the concept is that the soul rises from the body and ends up somewhere, wherever that is.
Right.
Then I
Right.
ask myself the question, well, if the soul is part of your embodiment, what is it when you no longer have a body? I mean, if you consider yourself, what are you without what you recognize when you look in the mirror, what you feel? It's all part of your identity. If you lose your body, don't you lose your identity? So, what is the soul? Is the soul a different type of an embodiment? You have a kind of an astral body. That concept exists
Right.
as well. So you still retain your astral body even after you die because you need that embodiment of some. It's hard to imagine a soul without a body. So that's I don't have a clear answer for that, but to me, it's interesting to think about it
Yeah.
because it's a complex idea which needs to be worked out in your own mind, in terms of and
Right.
in your experience.
Yes, yes, Michelle. Yeah, thank you. I never heard it this way. The soul being more this embodiment, something that's always there. The spirit being the expression of that. That's very unique. How did you come across these ideas? Is that something that did you do self inquiry, or did that come from different spiritual teachings?
Well, I read a lot. I've read a lot in my life, which is something I bemoan when I look at contemporary youth, my own daughter and my son, who don't read. I mean, they may read stuff on the internet stuff, but I mean, in terms of reading books, my daughter says she's ADD, or
Yeah.
she can't devote the attention necessary to go, read a book from cover to cover.
Right.
I've never had a problem with that
Right.
particularly, although I've had a lot of books in my library that I only read partially, but I
Right.
mean, at least I attempted to read them.
Right.
Sometimes the problem is not me, but maybe the book wasn't written in a way it's pretty dry, not that interesting
Yes.
to read.
Yes.
Um, but I think a lot of it comes from my reflections. I'm always thinking. One of my friends tells me, you think too much. And I,
Yeah.
I wrote a poem about that because that idea that he gave me, I said, well, that can be considered kind of a downer, you know what I mean, to say that I think too much. Because to me, if I don't think enough, I would be missing something. Like to me, thinking is part of existing. So if
Yes.
you're content to think less and just react and to just enjoy in the moment, for me, maybe that's not enough. So I looked at the concept of thinking too much, and I wrote a poem that kind of pokes fun at that idea and that looks at it from different perspectives. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's for me. Writing poetry sometimes is a puzzle.
Mm.
So how many pieces are to this puzzle, and how do the pieces fit together? That's what to me a poem is. For me, I create a
Yes.
puzzle, and it's up to you to identify what the pieces are of the puzzle and do they fit together. And what do
Ah,
you get at the end of it? Do you get a clear
right.
picture at the end, or it's not a clear picture? And
Right.
maybe if the person doesn't get a clear picture, either I've missed my opportunity to make it clear, or the person needs a little more time to read it a couple of times, do a little bit of thinking about it, and then maybe it'll be clear. You know what I mean? But you can't
Right.
assume that a person will read a poem and get it right away. It doesn't work that way.
That's
It
true.
does require some work,
Yes. Yeah. It
because of
does.
the nature of the language. It's not, I often refer to it as being oblique. It's not a straight line between 2 points.
Right.
Prose tends to tell me, just give it to me the way it is, the reality, and just be clear. Poetry is not like that. It uses metaphor, which is indirect.
Love
You're
that.
seeing something through something else. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And it's sometimes is was it allegorical. You're telling a story, but the story you're telling is not the one they think you're telling. You're telling another story. It's like reading the Bible. You could say, well, no, you have to take the Bible literally. What they're telling you in the Bible is what we're saying. Well, no,
Right.
that's not what it's saying. It's allegorical. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
that's the nature of poetry. It's a different type of a language. It
mm.
uses not a direct method, but indirect.
Yes. I really appreciate that because it is one of the most effective ways to deliver the truth in a way that we can interpret in our own way. That's not like you're not telling, well, telling somebody what the truth is very different than just kind of creating this picture and then telling them, what do you see here? And we all see it differently. But when the truth is communicated clearly in the poem or in music or in painting, whatever it is, form of art, then we can all get it, even in a sensory, in a very subtle way, but it's there. Like you reading your poem just now, my body automatically just wanted to move to it. That's a truth that's being communicated. That there's rhythm, harmony. There's this connection to the flow of life, to something that's alive. I go back to aliveness again. So yeah, I'm a big truth lover. So I'm always looking for ways to express truth in a more universal language, universal way. It doesn't have to be with the spoken language, but also like forms of art like dancing or body language. There's so many ways we can express truth. And for me, the biggest truth of all is that the mother of all truth is that everything's interconnected. Even if we don't
Mhm.
know where this is coming from, where we are going, all these things that's very intellectual, logistic, there's something about the essence of life. There must be one one ground for this, where everything kind of comes from, the essence. And if that is true, which I feel with all my being, then how would I treat somebody? How would I treat this body and my own mind and everything else? So that changed completely for me. That has changed my whole perspective in life. Just that basic truth, fundamental truth that everything is interconnected. So that's why I'm kind of, oh my God, I when I come across truth of this proportion, I become so, I melt. It's almost like I'm very devoted and yeah, dedicated to the truth. What sounds true, what feels truth, that is truth. So I really appreciate your work, Michelle. Thank you
Thank you very
for
much.
expressing truth in your own way, with your beautiful poetry. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're almost at the end, but I do want it to, because I have the cover here, and I know when we look at it, it feels very chaotic. That was the purpose, really? I know purgatory, it reflects that, but did you choose the cover or you had somebody helping you,
Well, they
somebody
asked me
else?
what my concept, my view of the title, and for me, it made perfect sense because there's three elements there in the cover. There's a river, there's a road, and there's a forest. Now,
Right.
this certainly speaks to Canadians here. Forest fires have become a big thing, not just in Canada, but the smoke is crossing over into the United States. They're realizing that we have a lot of trees, but the trees are burning, the climate's warming, and that has an effect on not just Canada, but on the United States and the environment in general. So it has an environmental statement. The forest is very important to me. It was important also to many writers, philosophers. Heidegger, which was the German existentialist. In Germany, they have the Black Forest, it was very symbolic for Germans. The Black Forest. It's the part of their world that hasn't been overly humanized. It's the wild side, of human nature. The road, of course, life is a road.
Yes.
And I chose a crooked road because I think the road we're following is never straight. It's always crooked. There's always a bend, and you never know what's around the bend.
So
and then
true.
the river, I have a very close connection to water. I was a merchant seaman, and I lived in Vancouver for many years. And the ocean, rivers, I was a Boy Scout, and we did an expedition. We did 200 miles expedition in canoes when I was about 16, just before I actually left home. So the river has always been a different type of a symbol of travel. And of course, for Canada has an enormous Aboriginal heritage, and there were no roads, when they existed here in Canada. The river was their road. This is how they traveled.
Right.
And we have a very complex network of lakes and rivers in Canada. So you can't think of Canada without thinking rivers. And of course, roads exist everywhere. They have a symbolic meaning. So there's three different symbols that have combined together to express. You're right that the fire is purgatory, but what's at the end of the bend could be purgatory as well. You don't know what's waiting for you, as well as the river. So I just put out those three ideas, and the artist put it together, and I thought I was quite impressed with the result. You know what I mean? The three exist simultaneously, but they all serve different purposes. When you think of what a tree in a forest represents for human beings, what does the river represent? What does the road represent? They all represent different things, but they also have things in common. You know what I mean? So I thought it was an ideal. Could have been something quite different, but that was my initial concept, and I think the artist did a pretty good job.
I think so too. It looks like a movie, actually. Is that something that you're contemplating to write? Is it a screenplay? Yeah, to.
No, well, I've thought of how difficult or how easy would it be to write a screenplay, because you don't have to worry about all the technical aspects of it that you leave to other people.
Yeah.
I've thought about that. I've thought of short stories too. I've thought of a novel. I thought of writing a story that I wanted my daughter to write about her own life, because she's had a tough time. She lost her mother at a fairly tender age, and she's never been the same since. But I had, again, with being on the theme of body, I started talking to her about the ideas I had. She goes, "Oh, Dad," she says, "that's incredible. So where did you get that?"
Wow.
And the title of it would be "Out of Body."
Yeah.
And out of body because she was born. She was her mother was induced, so she wasn't born naturally, in the sense that it wasn't cesarean either, but they forced the birth because they were worried about her mother's high blood pressure having an effect on the baby.
Yeah.
So when I thought about all these things, I said, well, it's interesting that, you were forced out of your mother's body prematurely. And she has a thing about, she's kind of suffers from, what do they call it? Body image.
Yeah.
She's always been unsatisfied with her body image. So again, it's like you're outside your body. You're criticizing your body, but you live in your body.
Yes.
So you need to get away from the critical aspect of not being happy with your body and being content, regardless of any imperfections. That's you. You're your body, but you're talking as if you're out of your body. So anyway, I was playing with the concept, and it would have made an interesting. The question is, could I write a novel that would be interesting to other people to read? You know what I mean? But it would be the trials and tribulations of this youthful person having an identity crisis and trying to come to terms with who she is. That could be an interesting story.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge also at the same time, and it's a
Right.
different format. It would be prose, which I'm capable of writing.
Oh,
But
sure.
when
Yeah.
when you've developed a skill as a poet, it's a bit like a painter who's used, for his whole life has been doing oil paintings, and now we're asking him to do watercolors. It's going to
Yes.
require whole new training, a whole new
Yes.
perspective. So,
That's true.
but these ideas come to me. I say lots of ideas. It's just a matter of finding the time to work on them. I don't know
Yes.
how many years I've got left, but I mean, I waited too long to come out with this collection. You know what I mean? I should have done this years ago. So I'm kind of feeling a little bit rushed,
Oh,
because
I
I already have
see.
enough material for a second manuscript, and I'm
Yeah.
experiencing what it's like to come up with an initial manuscript. It's complicated. The
Right.
publishing process is very complicated,
Right.
and there's no money in it necessarily. So luckily, I'm retired, so I don't need to have a job to
Yeah.
to uh, to support myself. So I have that
Right.
advantage, which is
Yes.
helpful.
It
But
is.
I've got some good things coming, I think. But I mean, I need to
Absolutely.
share. I've had these poems for too long, and nobody even knows that I'm writing poetry. So I mean, I've been in a kind of an absurd situation. It's time it's like a coming out for me.
Good.
It
Yes,
needs
never
to come
too
out.
late. I mean, you
No,
heard
it
about
isn't.
that before. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
old,
yeah.
ancient quote, but it's truth. Never
Mhm.
too late. I love the idea of the new book, Exile in Paradise, and also the one about the outer body, because a lot of women would relate to that. I mean, a lot of people in general, but especially
Yeah.
women. I think it's a wonderful idea. That would be
Yeah, there were so
very,
many angles in that. Just the fact that my daughter was so impressed and say, and I was trying to get more ideas from her. I mean, you
yeah,
appropriate this. I mean, I'm coming up with the idea, but I'm
yeah,
talking about you here. So
right.
help me
Yeah.
understand this even better because you could come up with more ideas, and we
Yes.
perhaps we could write it together. I don't know. I thought of that too
Oh, yeah.
because
What a
she's
beautiful.
getting pretty good at writing. My whole
Right.
family has improved at writing. It was never one of their strong points. I've had these discussions with my brother about education. We take this for granted, but none of us in an average family and even among friends, we did not have the same. There's a good chance we didn't have the same education,
Right.
and it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
The fact that you had the education you had means that the world you live in is different than the world I live in because
Mm,
my education is different.
right.
Education has its good points and its bad points, but when I speak of education, there's the education you get in a school, and then there's I've made reference to this in my poetry, there's the other school, which is the street, which is
Mm,
where you learn things from your friends and your neighbors
yeah.
and the stuff that maybe you weren't supposed to learn, but you learned it.
Right.
Sexuality, for instance, is not something you learned in the school. Now it is. But in my time, you didn't learn about that in the school. You learned about it in the street. You learned about it from your siblings and from your friends.
Right.
So there's more than one kind of school, but both schools are important. That's part of your education. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
So I think education is very important, both types of education, but we can't take them for granted. They're so different. The
Yes.
fact
Yes.
that kids are not reading today means they didn't get exposed to literature
Yeah.
and poetry and things like that, and that's unfortunate.
It is,
I
Michelle.
explained to people something very interesting. I came from it was a religious order, the school I was in. They taught us, they had these wonderful books in French. They were teaching us history, Roman history,
Yeah.
and the books were full of illustrations of what was going on, what tools they were using, what their housing looked like, what an average life of a Roman was. But the interesting thing is, it was all in Latin. So they were teaching us history and teaching us Latin at the same time, which is
That's
brilliant.
yeah.
I mean, if you're going to teach a language, teach it in a way that's really, really interesting, that's going to
Right.
engage the student. And
Yeah.
it worked because I enjoyed the Latin. It's very close to French, so you never lose it completely because a lot
Right.
of the words in Spanish, same thing,
Right.
Portuguese or Spanish.
Yeah.
And but that kind of education people are not getting today. It's gone. It's
Yeah.
it's disappeared. But
Yeah.
it was very valuable, and I think it made a whole difference, big difference for me. Why I love history, and I love languages.
Yeah.
I think I can attribute it to that experience.
Yes. I absolutely agree. it's being exposed to, and then it's not just exposed, but also having the interest. So it's how it's taught, as you said. Education is
Exactly.
really important, but
Exactly. Yeah.
some kids, they lose interest. Even me, I lose interest in certain things because they're not interested. They're just not something that I relate with. So it's important that too. And I think poetry, storytelling, poetry,
Mhm.
it's really a beautiful way of communicating, not just not just our own ideas, our own experiences, but also truth, teachings, wisdom, and we need more of that in a more entertaining way, playful way, fun way. So thank you for your contribution. It's a beautiful one. It's needed, very much needed.
Thank you.
If we had to go back to that, so I want to say goodbye for now. But before we say goodbye, Michelle, I want to mention your website. I have oxfordbookwriters.com. Do you have another way of for the viewers to contact you, or this is the only way
Well,
to
that's
access?
still in the planning stages right now. My publisher is working on building a website for me, which could become a self-sustaining website that's not connected to any platform per se. But we're not there yet. So I think the person who arranged this interview is working on my website, and I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what's in it, but it has
Yes.
potential, I presume, to present myself to a much larger public.
Right. Yeah. I will talk to them and I'll probably replace it at some point because it will be on my website permanently, this interview.
Right.
So I will just replace that. Um, Before we say goodbye, it has been wonderful to be in your presence, to speak with you, to listen to your wisdom, and to listen to one of your poems. So thank you for the gift. And
Thank you.
before we say goodbye, would you like to end this conversation in a particular way, Michelle? Any final thoughts? Anything?
Well, I would just invite people to read my manuscript, on Amazon or any
Yeah.
other platform that it might be available on, because I need some feedback. The funny thing is that when I was negotiated this with the publisher, they talk a lot about the audience, and the readers. The
Yeah.
fact of the matter is that's an unknown quantity at this point. We don't know who the readers are,
Right.
who they will be. So
Right.
it's we're not there yet. And I'm anxious to find out who my readers are.
Uh,
I presume there's going to be a lot of young people, but I also presume, given my age, there's going to be senior citizens who might be interested in how I've dealt with all this, the
mm,
travels and the stages that I've gone through. So
yes.
I
Yeah.
need a little bit more feedback. I'm looking
Yes.
for feedback.
Yes. Oh, good to
It's
know.
scary though. Feedback is always scary. That's probably what forced me to delay the publishing, is I was worried about criticism. Well, criticism is part of life. I mean, just take it, and if it can help you improve yourself, then so much the better.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
So,
I feel that the courageous act alone of writing a book, especially the book that you have written, that's already incredibly rewarding. I mean, I can't help but think that way. It's already a beautiful, beautiful initiative that's
yeah,
already done. And because we know books like this could live on for the next 500 years, and it's still very much relevant. You are sharing timeless wisdom, and that's what we need the most. Not just something that comes and goes because of it's going with the trends, but something that's just fundamental. I'm very interested in anything that's fundamental, that anyone can relate to. So you've done that beautifully. Thank you so much again for your
thank
contribution.
you.
So again, the book will be on the link will be here on the podcast notes too, to Amazon and the website, and then I'll replace later on. But thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon,
Thank you,
Michelle.
Valerie.
Bye for now, my
Nice
dear.
to meet you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Nice to meet you too.